The moment she looked into my eyes after 25 years and whispered, "Did you ever get my letter?" My entire life stopped. One question, one sentence, and suddenly, everything I believed about my past began to fall apart. I had spent decades thinking she walked away without a goodbye, while she believed I had chosen to ignore the most important words she had ever written. But the truth was far darker than either of us imagined. That night at our class reunion, a forgotten secret surfaced, one that had stolen our future before it ever had a chance to begin. I almost didn't go to my high school reunion. At 43, I had convinced myself that reunions were just places where people compared careers, showed off pictures of their kids, and pretended they hadn't spent years wondering what could have been. I stood outside the hotel ballroom for nearly 5 minutes before walking in. The room exploded with laughter and old memories. Familiar faces had changed, but something in their smiles made them recognizable. Someone shouted my name. "Daniel." I turned to see Mark running toward me with the same goofy grin he'd had at 17. "You actually came?" I surprised myself. I laughed. We hugged, and before I could ask about anyone else, the room suddenly became quiet in my mind. She had just walked in. Emily. Some people grow older. Emily simply became more herself. Her hair was shorter now, tiny lines framed her smile, but somehow they made her even more beautiful. Our eyes met across the room. She smiled. I smiled back. Then she walked toward me. For a second, I felt like I was 17 again. "Hi, Daniel." "Hi, Emily." She looked at me for a long moment before asking something I never expected. "Did you ever get my letter?" "What?" Her smile slowly disappeared. "My letter," she whispered. "The one I left for you after graduation." I stared at her, completely confused. "What letter?" The color drained from her face. "Oh," she looked away as if she'd just realized something impossible. "You really never got it?" I shook my head. "I don't know what you're talking about," and chose not to answer. Those words hit me like a punch, because I had spent 25 years believing she had forgotten me. Back in high school, everyone knew Emily and I liked each other. Neither of us ever admitted it. We were the kind of teenagers who stayed after class talking about everything except our feelings. She loved books. I loved fixing old cars. Somehow we always found reasons to spend time together. We studied in the library. We volunteered for school events. We shared milkshakes after football games. Everyone assumed we were dating. We weren't. Every time I planned to tell her how I felt, fear stopped me. Then graduation arrived. Her family was moving to another state. I told myself I would say it before she left, but I never did. On graduation day we hugged. She smiled through tears. "Promise me you won't forget me." I couldn't if I tried. She nodded slowly. "I have something for you." Before she could explain, someone called her name. Her parents were waiting. She squeezed my hand. "I'll make sure you get it." Then she left. I waited for days, weeks, nothing came. Eventually I convinced myself she had changed her mind. Life moved on, or at least that's what I told myself. Emily looked down at her hands. "I wrote you 6 pages. My heart tightened. 6 pages? I told you I loved you. I couldn't breathe. I told you I'd wait if you wanted me to." She laughed sadly. I even included my new address. I whispered, "I never saw any of it." She wiped a tear from her eye. I gave the envelope to someone I trusted. "Who?" She hesitated. "Rachel." I froze. Rachel. My girlfriend during freshman year. The relationship had ended badly. She had never hidden the fact that she disliked Emily. "You gave it to Rachel?" Emily nodded. "She told me she'd hand it to you after graduation because you were helping decorate the gym." A strange feeling settled into my stomach. Rachel had disappeared from my life soon after graduation. I hadn't thought about her in decades. Until now. The reunion suddenly felt different. Every memory became a question. Every unanswered moment suddenly had another explanation. Mark joined us, noticing our serious expressions. "Everything okay?" Emily quietly explained about the missing letter. Mark frowned. He rubbed his forehead. "I remember something." Both of us looked at him. Graduation night. Rachel was bragging that she'd finally solved a problem. "What problem?" I asked what she meant. "And?" Mark looked uncomfortable. She just laughed and said, "Some people aren't meant to end up together." A cold chill ran through me. Emily covered her mouth. Mark looked horrified. I never understood what she meant until now. Neither did I. For 25 years. 25 years stolen by one cruel decision. Later that evening, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Emily and I stepped outside onto the hotel's garden patio. The cool night air felt strangely comforting. She smiled softly. I used to imagine what would have happened if you'd answered. So did I. She looked surprised. I wrote stories in my journal, I admitted. Stories about finding you someday. She laughed through tears. I did too. For a strange moment it felt like the universe had paused. I remembered something I'd heard while listening to Echo of Tales, where someone said that the biggest tragedies aren't always caused by fate. They're sometimes created by ordinary people making selfish choices. Standing beside Emily, those words suddenly felt painfully real. She looked toward the stars. I got married. I heard. It didn't last. I'm sorry. It taught me a lot. She smiled gently. What about you? I married too. But we wanted different lives. You have children? A daughter. Her face lit up. I have a son. For the first time that night, we smiled without sadness. We spent hours talking. Not about regrets. About life. About mistakes. About parents we'd buried. Dreams we'd changed. People we'd forgiven. It felt strangely easy, like the missing 25 years slowly disappeared. Before leaving, she reached into her purse. I have something. She pulled out a worn notebook. I rewrote the letter every year. I stared at her. You what? I couldn't throw it away. She handed it to me. I think it belongs to you now. My hand shook. Inside were dozens of versions. Different handwriting, different paper, different years. Each one began almost the same way. Each one ended with hope, even after years. I couldn't stop crying, neither could she. A month later, curiosity got the better of me. I searched for Rachel, not because I wanted revenge, because I needed the truth. She agreed to meet. The years had changed her too. She looked nervous before I even spoke. I know why you're here. You do? I've been expecting this day. I sat silently. She took a deep breath. I never gave you the letter. I know. I burned it. Those words hurt far more than I expected. Why? She looked at the floor. Because I loved you. I didn't answer. I knew if you read it, I'd lose you forever. You'd already lost me. She nodded slowly. I know. Tears filled her eyes. I've regretted it every single year. I wanted to be angry. Maybe part of me was. But looking at her, I didn't see the jealous teenager anymore. I saw someone who had spent decades carrying the weight of one terrible choice. I can't change what I did, she whispered. No. I'm sorry. For a long time neither of us spoke. Finally I stood. I forgive you. She looked shocked. Really? I don't forgive what happened. I paused. I forgive the person who finally admitted it. As I walked away, something inside me felt lighter. The past couldn't be rewritten. But it no longer controlled me. Emily and I kept talking. Then, dinners. Then long weekend drives. There was no rush. We had already spent enough years apart. One afternoon we visited our old high school. The library was smaller than I remembered. The hallway lockers seemed tiny. We found the old oak tree, where we'd eaten lunch almost every Friday. Emily laughed. You still sit exactly the same. You noticed? I always noticed. I smiled. So did I. She reached for my hand. This time neither of us was afraid. A year after the reunion we stood beneath that same oak tree. I took a small ring from my pocket. I know we're not 17 anymore. She smiled. Thank goodness. I can't promise a perfect future. I don't want perfect. I only know I don't want another 25 years without you. She didn't even let me finish. Yes. People often ask if I regret the years we lost. Of course I do. I regret birthdays we missed, conversations we never had, dreams we could have built together. But I also know those years shaped us into people capable of appreciating what we have now. Sometimes life doesn't break your heart with dramatic endings. Sometimes it breaks it with silence. With a letter that never arrives. With words that never reach the person who needed them most. If there's someone you love, tell them. If there's someone you need to forgive, don't wait. And if life gives you one unexpected chance to ask a simple question, Never be afraid to ask it. Because sometimes a single sentence, "Did you ever get my letter?" can unlock a lifetime of hidden truth, heal wounds you thought would never close, and remind you that while time cannot be returned, hope can always find its way home.